G'day lads, welcome to the channel and welcome back if you are subscribed. Today I'll be doing my round 4 predictions and tips. Let's crack it on. So far out of the 3 tips, I've done like a sort of recap. I got 7 out of 9 last week, which is pretty crazy because I was just like flicking them up, rushing them. But yeah, overall I've got 16 out of 27 tips so far. So hopefully we can get closer to the 100% mark. Of course we're not getting the 100% because we've already failed, but let's get it a bit higher. Okay, a little disclaimer, all of these games that I'm saying the time are in Western Australian time. So the first game at Adelaide Oval, 5:40 PM, we have Port Adelaide playing up against the Melbourne Demons. Now, Port, they can't really find the on switch ever since that prelim. They haven't really been able to pick themselves up. Losing to Adelaide, of course, will definitely downgrade their morale. Whether they can pick it up this week against the Demons, it's going to be a really hard contest for them to compete in, especially with the issue with the backs, the forwards not really competing. Charlie Dixon out. Half their backline's out with injuries. The midfield's not really performing to the highest quality that we've seen before. So there's issues all over the park for Port, and unfortunately Ken Hinkley, the coach, is coming under fire for these issues. So for that and the whole sort of conditioning that Adelaide are in, it's leaning more to the Demons. Now the Demons coming off a wonderful start after that amazing season last season. They're 3-0, no losses on the trot. They're a bit rusty up against the Dons. The Dons, troubled them in a few stages and areas of the game. But the Demons can flick that switch. They can go up a notch and just take the game to a different level. And when they're playing a team like Port, who, they don't want to start 0-4. That's just embarrassing. So I reckon the Demons know what's coming, and they are going to come firing with fire on their belly and smash Port Adelaide by 47 points. Now to the Friday night game, probably the best game of the round. We have at GMHBA, 5:50 PM, the Geelong Cats up against the Brisbane Lions. Now, the Geelong Cats coming off an astonishing comeback, one for the history books. Collingwood was smashing them in and around the contest, but that Joel Selwood mentality, don't give up, just keep trying, the hunger in the belly, because they still want that premiership. They have to, win these games against Collingwood, and they knew. They came back, performed well. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the Brisbane Lions just swept the Kangaroos. They won by 108 points. Absolutely ridiculous. But this is played at GMHBA, and the Lions, we've seen a few upsets up against Victorian teams in Victoria, but I just can't see the Cats dropping this game. The fact it's at GMHBA, I lean towards the Cats. I'm not trusting myself too much, but I'm going to tip the Cats by 50. On to the Saturday games. We have the first game of the day at the SCG, 12:40 PM. The Sydney Swans up against North Melbourne. And where do I start with North Melbourne? Getting absolutely obliterated by the Brisbane Lions. The first and second quarter, they were in and around the contest. They went on par to get smashed. It's pretty obvious they were going to lose, but they weren't going to get smashed by 100 points. But then the second half came, siren went, and they just got exposed, in the second half. The depth is a real issue for them when key players go out like Taron Thomas, David Giniak with the concussion. It really affects them because those players are key parts of their system, and once they're out, it seems their team's so lacking in like key positions, and a lot of their depth is youngsters who are not ready to play AFL footy. They can really get exposed in those areas. Meanwhile, Sydney, coming off a pretty disappointing loss from their standpoint, they're up against a pretty nullified Bulldogs side. Their forward line was lacking attack. They're really, they rely off Smalls, which can be shut down, and the Swans weren't able to do that. Cody Waitman took over, the Bunt took over. Norton and Bontempelli were both injured during that game. Still battled on and won the game for the Bulldogs. But the Swans, can they reset after that bloody 1,000th goal a couple of weeks ago? I don't know. But they do have to sort of switch back on, because if they want to play finals, they have to beat teams like North Melbourne. But the fact that they did lose to the Dogs, I do reckon their morale will go down. The Roos love to play against the Swans. It won't be close, but it won't be smashing. The Sydney Swans win the game by 27 points. On to the second game on the Saturday, we have the Collingwood Magpies playing up against the West Coast Eagles at Marvel, 2:35 p.m. And the Eagles coming off an absolute smashing. They got embarrassed by my team, crosstown rivals Fremantle. They haven't lost a derby for quite a while. They lost last year, and then this kind of puts the salts into the wounds of the West Coast Eagles. Their forward line was pretty healthy. They didn't have a few players, but overall from last year they had that main forward line. Their midfield, we can say they were down on their midfield and their defence, but no excuses. They have to manage themselves. Of course, with the COVID protocols, you can't really control that. I do feel for them for that situation, but the other fact, they're older players having to get rested because they're too old. The list management should do better, I reckon. But they're playing up against a really energetic Collingwood Magpies team who almost beat Geelong, which would have been crazy if they did, but they didn't. They fell at the end. They were intense for the first 3 quarters. In the fourth, the intensity dropped, the bar went down, and this game against the Eagles, they should win. The Eagles going back to Victoria after losing to North, coming back to WA, back to Victoria. Don't be surprised if they have more COVID protocols with the interstate travelling. But my guess is Collingwood by 36. They won't be winning by around 50 due to the fact that it's at Marvel. The Pies aren't the best team at Marvel, but yeah, Pies by 36. On to the second last game on the Saturday, we have the Richmond Tigers playing up against the Western Bulldogs at the MCG, 5:20 p.m. And where do we start with Richmond? Oh boy, wowee. They were in control of the game and flopped against St Kilda. Left me speechless. I did tip St Kilda, so I was happy, but the Tigers should have done way better. I think they do have a few injuries coming back, like Jack Brewell. He won't do too much though in the whole aspect of the team. On the other hand, the Western Bulldogs coming off a pretty impressive win up against probably the hottest side at the time, the Sydney Swans. So big questions to be asked of Richmond. Can they perform? Yet again, the dynasty, I reckon, is over. But they can still make finals, in my opinion, if they work together and just collaborate and pick up the style of footy we knew they could play a couple of years ago. They will be making finals. But they are playing at the MCG, which is a bit of a factor for me, which is why the Dogs aren't smashing them. But the Dogs are winning by 21 points. On to the last game at Optus Stadium, 5:25. Fremantle playing up against GWS. Fremantle coming off a really impressive win. Real impressive from the smalls in and around the contest. Lockie Schultz was pretty much stole the show with his performance. The pressure, the intensity, the commitment, the goals, the plays was just crazy. Darcy Tucker going out with a concussion though, that's a big blow for the midfield. But apparently, David Mundy could be returning to the team into the midfield, so he'll slot right back into Darcy Tucker's position. But that midfield is becoming a bit thin now with a few injuries to the players. Key players like Sarong, Nat Fife, Darcy Tucker. It's becoming a bit of a thin midfield. We're having to play half-back flankers on the wings now, like Aish. So that is a bit of a lookout for Fremantle. We did play the small defenders last week. It did work out, but if Alex Pearce was injured, that could have really cost us the game. Whether the coach selects the other two bigs will be a question, because the Giants do have quite a few bigs which we have to shut down. Meanwhile, on the other hand, GWS coming up against a pretty good performance up against the Gold Coast Suns. Don't know what happens to the Suns. The Giants should have got the job done. They did, pretty convincingly. And Fremantle by 19 points is my prediction. I can't talk properly today, but Fremantle by 19. And so the first game of the Sunday block, the Bombers are playing up against the Crom at Marvel, 11:10 a.m. What a game this will be. But what about the Adelaide Crows coming off a massive win up against Port Adelaide? I reckon ruining Port Adelaide's season. That single game ruined their season. But what a performance from the Crom. Himmelberg, everyone was writing him off saying he's not going to be good, and then he comes and kicks a bag of 3. So whether he can do that again up against a very depleted Bombers side will be a big question from my standpoint. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the Bombers, just so disappointing. They should be doing a lot better. They're not. Not too much to say. Zach Merida is a big blow. Their midfield just cost them, and their forwards, it's not a great overall team. Last season they were young, exciting, fresh. They don't look fresh, young, and exciting this season. They look a bit stale, which is a bit concerning because that was their whole morale sort of pushed them because they were so up and about, energetic. Whereas this season they look a bit depleted. So this game, pretty big call from me, but I reckon the Bombers will get their first win of the season and win by 16 points, beating the Crom. On to the second game of the Sunday block at the MCG, 1:20 p.m. We have Hawthorn playing up against the Saints, and Saints were absolutely nuts. First half, they were getting run over. Richmond was walking straight past them. It looked like Richmond were going to go on and win the game by like 50, the way they were going. Then all of a sudden, Max King steps up and wow, crazy performance from the Saints. They put their heart and effort into the game. They put the hunger, desire to play finals again, a factor into the game, which ultimately won them the game. But they are playing up against a very exciting Hawthorn game, sort of team who played an amazing game against Carlton. They tend to do this. They give their opponents a little bit of a head start, and then they come back hungry, firing. Almost worked out, but then Jacob Wiedering saved the Blues at the end. But the Hawks, they are a team to look out for in the finals, I reckon. The Hawks by 28, the fact that it's at the MCG. The Saints, they're not that good at the MCG, and the Hawks are just on fire. Right? Last game of the round at Metricon Stadium, 2 p.m. The Gold Coast Suns play Carlton, and Carlton, first 3-0 start I've seen them play. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the Gold Coast Suns 1-2, only beating a depleted, sort of destroyed West Coast team. Last week's performance against the Giants really showed they're not all about what they are. They look pretty average, especially coming off that Melbourne Demons game in round 2, to then show up against the Giants side and lose by 30. That is just embarrassing. But the Blues, too strong in my opinion. The Blues will win by 30. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Really grow the channel. Make sure you like as well. Boys. Hopefully I get 9 out of 9.
See ya.